All right, folks, welcome back to the Boardroom. I'm downtown Logan Brown, and today I'm stoked to have our head of pro services, head of consulting, John Coyle. He's an agency man, bought, sold. He does it all, talks with our customers all day long. This guy has got the juice. And today we're going to squeeze it out. We got a couple Q&A. We're going to change it up a little bit. We want to hear from our customers. And John's got a couple of questions that I think you'll want to hear. So John, welcome to the Boardroom, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you. I am a little disappointed I don't have an awesome nickname like Downtown Logan Brown.
We'll get one for you.
That's next level. Did you just name yourself that? I didn't know you could do that. You can just make up your own nickname.
You want to know the backstory? I didn't make it up.
Someone else gave you that nickname. Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to know the backstory now. Yeah.
All right. Let's go early days ecom. I joined a company called Chubby Shorts back in 20.
Ooh, yeah, one of my favorite brands.
Yeah, they're great. And I joined the customer service team actually. And everyone on the customer service team back then had their own nickname. So there was John Mark the Doc Craddock and James Tater Hargett, and I was Downtown Logan Brown. And I thought as a fun branding exercise, if you're going to brand, anything, brand yourself. And so if you're going to remember a generic name like Logan Brown, you might as well remember Downtown Logan Brown.
Downtown Logan Brown. I like it, dude.
That's that.
Yeah. We need to come up with something for me now. But so was there like a person at Chubby's who had the title of like nickname creator, like head of nickname, I don't know what's
like the nickname giver,
head of nicknames.
I dubbed the Downtown Logan.
They just like sit at home and they're like throwing a ball against the wall. They're like, I got it, Downtown Logan Brown. Like,
that's it.
That's what they do all day.
I know. I swear that team was the most creative group of people I've ever met in my life. But
that's why I like them. Yeah, they have creative marketing, and a thing I like to say a lot is I stole this actually from the Liquid Death creative director. There's ad funny and there's actual funny.
Yeah.
And he's like, Liquid Death, we're shooting for actual funny. And I would say that that's what Chubby's does as well. They do actual funny, which is hard because you have to take risks. You have to like maybe be a little worried you're going to do something that offends some people, but like ultimately pays off. I think it's the difference between, kind of like B-, A- creativity and creatives in messaging and like A+ messaging. But little side quest. I didn't know you were at Chubby's before. So it's fun.
Yeah. Well, it's almost going on a decade ago now, but it was a great time while I was there.
All right, so we get into it. So I got a couple questions, write-in questions from Triple Whale customers. I got a couple questions from Triple Whale customers, so I'll just read them and then we can kind of riff on the answers as we see it. You coming from sort of the data side, product side, and me coming from the marketing side. So first one is, I'm currently planning. Here, I'm going to move this so I can read it better into my mic.
Do it.
I'm currently planning advertising budgets for next year, but I'm having a hard time knowing how much my sales will increase if I increase my budget. How do you go about figuring this out?
Yeah, good question.
Let's start with product. Yeah, I think we've got some tools for this. So let's start there.
Yeah, I mean, we hear so much from customers. They're trying to figure out, like, they're trying to forecast, if not, through a tool like our
what will happen. Yeah.
I mean, or you just like, you're trying to like figure it out on the fly through a spreadsheet or something. Not a bad strategy, but hopefully we do have some data that'll help people get there. One of the ways, and I guess I'll speak to like kind of how I used to approach it, and I'd love to hear from you because I've been at Triple L for 3 years, so I've not been in a marketing seat doing it for quite a while now. But I used to always go back to my cohort analysis, and I used to figure out like per month, what were my acquisition costs? How much did I spend? How many customers did I acquire over time? And then you'd kind of see that trend year over year. Like I think right now, you were saying something earlier about observed data, and we'll get to that in a minute because I'm excited for you to explain it. But I'm observing currently like customer acquisition costs are going up, roughly like 5 to 15% year over year. And that's like a trend I would look at. The other thing I would look at is like my calendar for the year. I always had like a product calendar. We knew what our releases were. I kind of understood like, acquisition costs, new customers coming in the door. It's also related to like the products you're selling. So we had this period of time at another company I was at where we sold swim trunks in the summer. It sold like gangbusters. We could do, and of course our CAC looked really good there, but our AOV profile was different. And then you move into like the winter time or the fall, and we had a totally different AOV outlook because we were selling hoodies and quarter zips and higher priced items. So I would look for the best sellers over those periods. I would try to understand based on the creatives that we had, did we have some really big unlocks this year where I think if we can launch this creative against this product set, I might be able to get some efficiencies. And then from there, like that's where I would almost go intra month. Like my goal here is to spend 50K. Like that's what we were doing, like somewhere around 50K a month. And I was like, let me try to get to that. I'm going to pace to that, and we'll see if we can't either outpace it and meet the goal, or if we have to tailor back and next month we'll try to shoot again. That's the way I went about it.
Yeah. So this is interesting because you were in-house. I've been in-house a little bit, like I've led grow, but usually when I'm coming in-house at a brand, I'm doing it for like 6 months to build their marketing team or something like that. That's most of what I've done. So I haven't been like long-term in-house anywhere. But I have a take on this projecting thing that I think is maybe a hot take. So I would love if
Icy,
you,
baby. Come on.
yeah, I would love to hear you try and poke holes in this because I think we have a real problem with in ecom culture with projections. And my question is, why do we need the projections? The core basic reason we need them is because we need to know how much of things to buy, right? So how much product do I need to buy? That product isn't going to be here for 90 days or maybe 6 months. I need to have some idea of what I'm going to sell 90 days or 6 months from now. And fine, yes, we need to know how much product we're going to buy. So projections to a degree are necessary. How do we currently make them? Well, last year we grew 20% year over year. So let's project 20% growth year over year. That's pretty much how we make them right now. And the process by which we come up with that, last year we grew 20%, so let's project 20% growth year over year, takes like 3 days. So like it should take one sentence like it just did for me. If you're just going to like wing it and shoot from the hip, might as well wing it and shoot from the hip. But I think we have like a real problem with, and this is probably all companies, where people need to like justify their job. So they take 3 days to come up with a projection that is not really any more mathematically based than just shooting it from the hip. Does that make sense? So the real problem comes in where we now are held to these projections. So when we do the process of demand planning, this is my joke, like the process of demand planning in e-commerce, we might as well just call that demand guessing. Sure. Because we don't actually, like a brand that's been around 5 years, 6 years, and has grown from 1 million in the first year to 20 million or whatever it is. Like, you really think you have enough data to like accurately demand plan? No, you don't, not close, not even close. Furthermore, the main thing that dictates what will happen with your sales is not, you and anything you can control. The main thing is market conditions, right? And you can't predict the market conditions. So I think that we then have this problem where we projected 20% growth that was based on whatever, we just felt like it was good. And then we have this whole marketing team that is shooting for this 20% growth number and is hitting these budgets as if is spending these budgets as if we're going to hit 20% growth. And at the end of the day, it's like the market conditions aren't giving us that, but we're still spending the budget. And it's this like make or break KPI that nobody can control. And everybody on the marketing team's worried they're going to lose their job. And they're trying to like, come up with justifications and reasons. And we're spending more time like doing things that aren't that helpful, like doing like things to justify what's happening in the non-controllables than just like doing the outputs that will ultimately lead to success. So what I advocate for here is, okay, you need to know how much stuff to buy. The easiest thing for you to project is your returning customer revenue. Returning customer revenue, you can actually project pretty accurately. And you can even do it for product categories, like you said, pretty accurately. So project your returning customer revenue. The next easiest thing is like, what is typically there isn't a lot of variance in what percentage of your overall revenue your returning customer revenue makes. And when I say that, I mean, there's only variance when things are really going well on acquisition. So look at periods of time where things aren't going well on acquisition and say, how much of my revenue comes from returning customer revenue when things are just average or even below average on acquisition. All right, let's like say that probably, let's use that and say our revenue on the low end will probably be this. So we're probably on the low end going to see 5% year over year growth to 10% year over year growth, depending on the month. And that's what you order against. And if that means that you don't have enough inventory for a time period that ends up being really good because you were under ambitious or you weren't optimistic enough, that's fine. You would rather have more demand than supply than more supply than demand. In fact,
Yeah.
more supply than demand is about the worst problem you can have in a physical product company. So I would way rather have more demand than supply. And then if the, market conditions end up being better, so basically you plan for, average to below average market conditions, that's what you order against. And then you might create goals for the team that aren't that, right? Like you might create more aggressive or more ambitious goals for the team, but a goal for the team is decoupled from what your projected revenue was or what your demand plan says, right? They're not the same thing. And goals for the team should include revenue, but they should also include output goals. So a creative director's output should be, 30 creatives per month. And so it's like, yeah, maybe we didn't hit the revenue, but you only have a small bit of control over that, but you did hit the thing that you do have control over. So you don't have a team that's just like dusting off their or dusting off their resume because they think they're going to get fired. Sorry, that was like a really long TED talk, but I think we have a real problem with this in e-commerce. And nobody that's as young as most e-commerce brands can really do any kind of accurate projection demand planning. Procter and Gamble can. They know their distribution. Sure. They've been around for forever, but yeah, and they have to manufacture it. So it makes sense. Thoughts? Poke holes in it because I am getting more. I have these conversations all the time, and like marketers are stressed out about it, and I'm like, this demand plan was actually never realistic. Like they just said 20% year over year, even though that wasn't realistic, and now you're going to lose your job over it.
Yeah, I think. Well, I agree with a lot of what you said. The thing that's sticking out is that I do agree there's a lot of guesswork involved. Demand guessing is a good little term. And I don't like the idea of growing for the sake of growing, but I think we as humans want to always improve, whether it's personally or the brands we work for. So like inevitably people are like, I want to do better than last year. So one thing I wanted to make sure that we answered and I want to get your thoughts on is if this person that asked this question, if they've decided they want to increase budgets, maybe that's the way they're going about it. Like I want to increase my Facebook budget or whatever it is, all budget by 20%. How would you demand guess their improvement?
Okay. So I would start with returning customer revenue because it is like you can pretty accurately project returning customer revenue for the most part. So I'd start with returning customer revenue, use the forecasting tool and trip a whale, or just kind of look like you can also just like, okay, our returning customer revenue has if you look at it, it's usually like our returning customer revenue increased 10% year over year last month. Then if you go look at the last 6 or 7 months before that, it's almost always like it was between 8 and 15% every single one of those months. Like it's usually very clustered how much it's growing year over year. So you can relatively accurately guess your returning customer revenue. And then if you're trying to increase budgets, then you look at that and you say, okay, that's what's going to provide the tailwind for me being able to invest more, even if the increased investment doesn't work out. Right. So if I invest more, obviously I want to invest more in the channels that drive the most new customer revenue or get the best new customer CPAs. But if I don't, right, like if we take some risks with our scale and they don't work out, the returning customer revenue is what provides the baseline and the tailwind for you to be able to take those risks. So start there and then say, based on that, what's a realistic amount that you could kind of increase budgets? And if it doesn't go well, you guys will still be hitting, an acceptable MER for whatever revenue level you're kind of going to be at, right? That's probably it's a very simplified way, but that's where I would start. And then from there, I would just kind of map out what do I want the overall MER to be in different revenue scenarios, right? So I want contingencies. Let's say it's a brand that does $1 million a month for easy math on average. So I want contingencies all the way from a $500K month to $2 million month. Right. And maybe $250,000 intervals. So if we hit between 500 and 750, MER needs to be this. And just MER, marketing efficiency ratio, that's the percentage of revenue you spend on your ads. So if you make $1 million in revenue and you spend 200,000 in ads, your MER is 20%. You've spent 20% of your revenue on your ads. Wanted to do a definition of terms in case anybody doesn't know it, but
that's great.
So MER at 500K to 750K, maybe that needs to be 15%. 750 to $1 million, maybe that can be 17%. $1 million to 1.25, that can be 18%. And 1.25 to 1.5, that can be 20%. 1.5 to 2 million can be 22%. Right. So what the main thing I want to do is I want to say, what am I likely to see? Based on what my returning customer revenue is probably going to be. And then how do I land the plane no matter what the weather conditions are, right? The
Sure.
month's going really well. What do we need the MER to be? If the month's going really poorly, what do we need the MER to be, and everything in between? And then that's how I manage it. It's more of a real time read and react than it is let's plan budgets for the whole year in January. You know?
Yeah. Yeah. And like I guess this may poke some holes. We'll see. I'll
Yeah,
go back to and there's actually a cool nuance to this that's actually very connected to my previous role, because the customer who asked this question did make a note that they're in a small niche where there's only a few million customers that are
yeah,
involved in their activity or whatever they sell. I was in the exact same boat. We sold apparel to Grateful Dead and Fish fans. So
yeah.
we had licenses through Warner
This
Brothers.
sounds like a Logan brand original
I
brand. This is
should have
your
been, yeah.
brand that
There's a
you
reason
did
I got
launch this
involved.
brand. Dude, this sounds
No.
like something if you were ever going to launch a brand, I'd be like, oh yeah, it's a Grateful Dead like tribute apparel brand. Sounds like Logan.
Yeah, yeah. Well, someone else thought that too, and that's how I got the gig. So, uh, yeah, but like, the reason we had to meet with demand planning so much was because we got into this scenario where we knew there was a target of about 2 million of these fans on Facebook, and we knew we could look at like Spotify numbers, YouTube numbers.
Yeah.
We paid attention to these little things just to figure out like what are the fringe
What
too?
is our
Like,
total addressable market? Yeah.
yeah, like, and is it growing? And for Grateful Dead, not really. It was growing in the sense that we got lucky where like PacSun and some of these other major brands were starting to jump on the train and kind of grow the awareness amongst the Gen Zers. So anyway, I
Mhm.
would I would suggest this person like look into those signals as well. Like, is their niche growing at all, or is it truly a
Yeah.
finite number? Because like
Good
we
ways
would,
are like, yeah, like you said, is there retailers you can look at, or is there, yeah, Spotify numbers, Facebook groups, things like that? Or like, is there an event around, they said it's a hobby.
oh,
So
okay, yeah, yeah.
are there events around around this hobby, and are they getting bigger? Right.
Yeah, because as tour went on, we would sell more product, right? Like people
Mhm.
wanted to wear the stuff to tour. Like,
Yeah. And
um,
you could look at ticket sales around Grateful Dead tours and see, is this kind of an expanding or contracting ham? Right.
yep, yep. And going back to demand planning, one reason we were also trying to figure out what would be our spend in the summer or something. When we had
Mhm.
those swim trunks, at first we only sold 4 different styles. And we're like, well, we know it's a great product line for us. Can
Mhm.
we expand the product line and sell through it? That was like one of the questions we had. And it was like, great, how much can we sell? That was very much a guess. We were very like our big reservation was, will it cannibalize or will it improve? Because we're like,
Right.
if you give people these extra options, is it just going to take the best seller from last year and now make it the worst seller because everyone gravitated here? Um,
That's
and
super helpful. Yeah. And I was missing that context. I wasn't missing it. It was right there, but I wasn't thinking about that. Like, how do we know where our TAM is? It's really hard to know where the ceiling is before you slam your head into it. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
You can do little things like you're saying to guess. And I think that was good. What were your findings from that? Like, what did you guys have any? Because this is one of those things where we were talking about the term observed data earlier. There are some times where it's like you don't have enough strength of data, like statistical significance on data to support something. But like something like this, what is the TAM on a niche audience like the Grateful Dead, like Grateful Dead apparel, or like this hobby that they're, you're not ever really going to get enough like really firm data to like know how much it's expanding 10% year over year. You're not going to get enough. So you're going to have to do an observed data thing where you sort of just observe and look at how much are these events expanding, how much is, Google Trends expanding around these search terms, stuff like that. And like kind of cross reference all that together and come up with your best hypothesis for whether it's expanding or not. What were your findings for things that were helpful in making those like educated guesses, and what were your findings of like educated guesses that you guys missed on, or that you feel that you hit on? Maybe hard to say, but yeah.
Yeah, I've got some cool things for you.
Yeah.
All right. So first thing we did was we wanted to, like, in Grateful Dead, everything has let me show you something. So I like to pick up things that are also like going through the same licensing. So this is
Yeah.
like everybody's doing Grateful Dead stuff, but this is like an iconic logo of theirs. But most
Yes.
people know like the dancing bear. Like I'm sure you've seen the dancing bear.
I think a lot of people know the skull one as well.
Yeah, like the Steely is what they call it. Everybody kind of knows the Steely.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
and but that was a big part of our merchandising strategy, and we had to figure out if we're going to expand the swim trunks or a shirt or whatever, what are we leaning into? Like what type iconography are we going to lean into? So we could do that analysis. You could do that in Triple Whale too. And try to understand, like, is Dancing Bear across categories the best one? Or is it Steely? Or there's a ton of them for Grateful Dead.
Mhm.
So that was one big piece, right? And I would say and I'll give you a hit and a miss for every single one of these.
Yeah.
The hit was that we found out which iconography did best. The miss was that we went too fringe too fast on some things. And we would like the swim trunks is a good example where we tried to use a fringe iconography that we thought would be great. We thought it would differentiate us a little bit, but it was a slow seller. Everyone gravitated to the stuff we kind of knew would win. And we overbought like in the swim trunk category, I would say.
Okay.
Luckily that's something that can sit around without taking too big of a hit and sell next season. And Grateful Dead at that point also did, or Dead and Company at that point also did a big show in Mexico in February. So it gave us an entirely new season to sell swim trunks, by the way.
Mm.
The next cool thing we did that I thought was somewhat unique is that we reached out to other retailers in the market that we knew were selling Grateful Dead gear. And we were actually one of the bigger ones. So people kind of looked up to us. And here's one like low cost thing that we did to learn about the addressable market. We found a jewelry manufacturer that did a jewelry brand that did just Grateful Dead jewelry. And
Mhm.
we knew that like our female market, we're not really sure of it. We know the women buy for their husbands or their partners, but we didn't know will they buy for themselves. So we bought into their inventory and used like that brand called Fair, right, to host the
Yeah.
inventory on our site. And we marketed it and we tried to learn like, and then they co-marketed it for us. Like, oh, Section 119's carrying some stuff. We did like a custom thing with them so that we had like a key differentiator between their site and our site. And
Mm.
it gave us an extra boost of customers to retarget the returning customer market that we could go and get more dollars out of. Um, the big miss there was that the margin profiles weren't great. So we spent a lot of like, I told you I'd give you a hit and a miss for all these. The miss
Yeah.
there was that like, although we did capture those, we did it with another brand too that was amazing. Sold like gangbusters. I'm talking like, not like this is big for some people, but for us it was big. We sold like 30,000 units of this thing. Uh, but low AOV, bad margins for us because not only do we owe the licensing fee, but we also, we're buying it wholesale. So there's like, I mean, margin's only 50%. And then there's the licensing fee plus whatever, the cost of acquisition
Yeah.
is. Um,
Yeah. And
so,
just licensing fee. So people understand you have to pay you have to pay the Dead company. Is that what they're called?
well, it's
You have to pay
Grateful
the
Dead
Dead
licensing through
company.
Warner Brothers, but we got to pay Warner Brothers,
Yeah,
so
you have to pay. You have to pay Warner Brothers either a percentage or a dollar amount for every one of those products you sell. If anybody's ever watched Shark Tank, Kevin, Mr. Wonderful, does all
he
these
loves
deals
doing
like
that.
this all the time, where he says, "I want a $1 licensing fee for every unit of this product that you sell until I've made my investment back." So yeah, anytime you do like Grateful Dead stuff or San Francisco 49ers stuff or whatever, you're having to pay a licensing fee.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry,
And
didn't mean
then,
to interrupt you. Go ahead.
no, not at all. I mean, and I think just sticking to like the TAM and trying to understand where our opportunities were. I do think when you're in a niche, or even if you're not in a niche, even if you're, let's say Liquid
Mm-hmm.
Death has the opportunity. I'm sure they know their core customer. Like they could probably pick a guy out of a crowd or a girl out of a crowd and say, it's probably who's going to hold my can. But
Mm-hmm.
what's really interesting is that like, if you can go to events and try to figure out if anybody knows who you are and if you like fit in there, because for us, we knew going to the shows was a big idea because at any given show, especially for Dead or Fish, you have between 10 and 20,000 people there. And you have an
Yeah.
opportunity to look around the crowd and say, is anyone wearing my stuff? And you can sell stuff on there if you want. And then you can walk around and ask anyone you want about like, do they know who you are? It's a little uncomfortable. It's almost like door-to-door sales, but you don't have to take any cash. You're just like, hey, listen, here's who I am. Like, have you ever heard of this brand? Hand out a
Yeah.
koozie or whatever. And we would like take that data. We'd interview a couple hundred people or something and just ask around. And like we'd anecdotally be able to say like 20% of this market has no idea who we are.
Yeah.
So there's
Yeah. Okay.
opportunity there to reach new people.
Yeah. If I were to categorize everything you're saying, I would say low. You were looking for asymmetric opportunities to test how large the market was for for Grateful Dead licensed apparel. Meaning, how can we do kind of a low risk thing that will allow us to test, will women buy the product? how can we do a low risk thing that will allow us to get just like a straw poll on how many people at a show know who we are, right? Like, oh yeah, just buy tickets to the show, buy a plane ticket, bring a bunch of koozies with you. Like, it's pretty low risk, and the upside is asymmetric, where you're like, okay, 4 out of 5 people, we've got good penetration into this market, but there's still 20% of the people who don't know who we are that are going to the shows, and those are like the hardcore deadheads, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of the theme of a lot of what you're saying, is like you're looking for little tactics to sort of test the market and find like figure out, either through selling something at a low in a low risk way where you didn't have to do a huge minimum order quantity or something like that, or something like that. And I think that's important, especially with licensing. And I don't want to sidetrack too much, but I want to ask you this about licensing. So usually with licensing, and I would guess with the Dead company, because Grateful Dead is pretty big, there's minimum order quantities. So there's a minimum amount that you have to sell. Meaning, if I go and I want to, sell these water bottles, but I want to sell them with, University of North Carolina on them, or San Francisco 49ers or the Grateful Dead or anything like that, they're going to maybe do that deal with me. And I don't even know how to get into licensing deals, but they're going to do that deal with me. But if they're big like that, if they've got a big brand, there's going to be a minimum amount that I have to sell. There's basically a minimum amount of money that I'm going to have to pay them. And so one, I'm curious, was the Dead company, did they have like minimums that would deter a lot of competitors? And two, is that a lot of why? Yeah, and to me, I would guess that's a lot of why you're doing stuff like partnering with the jewelry brand. So it's like, now we don't have to get into the jewelry game and get into the minimums for that. We can partner with them to do it or whatever.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so there are minimums, but you kind of get their you can kind of get their attention, and then what you want to do, especially if you want to get into licensing, like a lot of the major, unfortunately, you're not going through the band typically. There's a
Right.
cool story, if we get to it, where our co-founder got to meet with the founder got to meet with Fish, which was pretty cool.
Nice.
But you're working with like the majors that owned the rights to the band and their logos and iconography. So in this case, it's Warner Brothers, but Rhino is the subsidiary that handles this. And what they're doing is they're trying to find niches of categories that they think have opportunity for them to make money. So,
Right.
and there's a little bit of competition there, where they try not to like have multiple brands that are selling swim trunks like we were. You
Yeah.
can say, listen, if I can give you this minimum amount, I don't want you to let
Will you
anybody
give me
else sell swim trunks.
yeah.
Yeah.
Will
So
you give me exclusivity basically?
yeah. And so like really,
So you
there are the
probably
minimums,
want to
but
commit to the minimum that will get you exclusivity.
yeah. And then but you renegotiate every year. It's one of those things where um the good news is for some of those categories, you can negotiate by category, and the more volume you do, you can negotiate down your rate, because it's normally a percentage of sale that they
Yeah.
request. So um
Cool.
yeah,
Well,
that's pretty much how it worked.
I want to get to the other question that we have. We just kind of have two today. I want to get to the other question, but yeah, if we have time at the end, let's come back to the fish story. All right. So, other question is, our brand is in, and this part's in quotes, our brand is in, quote, a vicious cycle of discounting, end quote. I think we've trained our customers to only buy when we have a sale. We've tried to do fewer sales this year, but we ended up just going back to it because we fell too far behind our targets. So they were trying to be like, all right, let's do less sales and let's kind of build the brand. I'm paraphrasing, let's do less sales, let's kind of build the brand. But then, they weren't hitting their revenue numbers. And this is common, that's a great idea until we're missing our revenue projections and by too much. And we've got a bunch of products sitting around that we have to pay the invoice for, and we need cash. So they wanted advice for this, I guess.
Yeah, and I mean I think this brand also gave a little bit of context that I don't want to say their legacy, but they said they were in like big box retailers like Belk and stuff, right? So obviously
Yeah.
they're
There
able
was a
to
lot of. Yep. Go ahead.
no, just I mean obviously they're able to crank out some volume, right?
Yeah.
So they should have really great efficiencies on their COGS. Um, and yeah, I imagine like volume is the play, but you and I have both seen brands that are doing the volume stuff at with discounts. And I think I mean, I'm going to toss out a couple of ideas, but I'm going to keep it quick, and then you can let me know what you think of them. You
Yeah.
can go the route of I'm a discount brand, that's fine, but I create a quality product at a discount and I'm going to
Hmm.
create bundles, right? So you can increase the AOV across the board just by saying like, you're not going to come here and buy one pair of pants from me or one shirt. No, you buy 5 packs, you buy, a set of 3 pairs of these shorts or pants, and like that's how you get the revenue to increase relative to the number of customers in the door. You see this a lot with like think about the Fabletics world. So Fabletics does a subscription model, and then
Yeah.
they want you to come back every month and buy more and more stuff, but they do a lot of bundling too. Um, but then like there's the other side of the coin. If you want to really try to pivot yourself back into a brand that's looked at as super valuable or high end or something. I mean, Carhartt's been around forever. I wouldn't say they were a discount brand, but I think affordable brand is something I would describe them as because they're for the blue collar
Affordable
crowd.
quality, which I think based on the context that this brand gave, they're kind of seeing we're really seen as a value buy, like our tights or leggings should cost $80, but they only cost $40 at Costco or whatever. So yeah, like value for quality, I guess it was sort of what Carhartt's was. It's
Yeah.
probably in the same thing. Yeah.
But I
Sorry,
mean, I'm
didn't mean.
thinking like the Carhartt work in progress, like the WIP brand. Like this is not an
Mhm.
easy thing to do. I'm not saying it is, but if you can spin out a separate brand, not even have to change the product much at all, but like I've seen, there's a fun pickleball company that I've also had on the boardroom,
Mhm.
Selkirk, and what they do is they have this what they call labs products, and so labs products are exponentially more money than their typical stuff. But they create some exclusivity because it's like a club, so can you tack on like a red label or something fancy, just a little something that makes
Yeah.
people feel like that's differentiated from your normal line, and you can market it and merchandise it in such a way that it's marked up at a higher price. Um, but like when you said like quality, but for a lower price, all like I also just thought like, man, what a big strategy to go after the TikTok market because all you see are like the moms and these influencers, whoever you want to call them,
Yeah.
pitching the Lululemon version of whatever that's $20 or $30. Like there might be some volume here.
That that's big. And so the bigger concept here is I did a LinkedIn post about this a little while back where I posted just an ad of a pair of pants, a pair of jeans. And I said, hey, how much do you guys think this costs? How much do you guys think these pants cost? And the concept here is a tough one because we're both wearing triple whale hoodies. So but like, if you were to guess how much my hoodie costs, you already know. But how much would you guess? Let's say triple whale wasn't on it. It was just a plain white hoodie. And this is what you see.
Yeah, like I would say like $50.
You'd say $50. Do you know how your brain didn't go straight to $50? What
Okay.
your brain actually did was it created a high and a low.
All right.
So your brain said, let me look at that. What do I see? And it took several signals, right? One signal is the environment. How is it merchandised? One signal is, can I see quality, right? Like, can I visually see how soft it is, how thick it is? For a hood, this is for a hoodie, right?
Sure.
Is there like visible quality here? And it does, several other things as well, right? There's a lot of these. I have like a list of these things that kind of anchor price in our brains, either consciously or subconsciously.
Yep.
And then your brand created a high where you're like, I don't know, it could be like, might be an 80 or I don't know what your high was, but probably $80 or $90 hoodie. It was maybe your high if you said 50. And then it created a low where you're like, maybe it might be like kind of a cheap hoodie. It might be $25, $24.99. And then you landed on what I would call pretty mid-range for a hoodie, $50, right? Most D2C, that would be low end for a D2C hoodie, but
Yeah.
mid-range for all hoodies everywhere. And it actually doesn't matter. The high and the low matter more than the price you actually said. So if you were scrolling through TikTok or Meta or anything, and you saw this hoodie, and this is I'm speaking to this because you're only selling on discounts. So this is the part that you're getting wrong. You see this hoodie, your brain creates the high. If you're somewhat interested in this product, your brain creates the high and the low, and then you kind of guess a price. And sometimes you don't even guess a price. Your brain just creates the high and the low. You click on the ad, you go through. If the price comes in, let's say your low was $29.99 and the price comes in at like $22.99. If you were interested in the hoodie, you're probably going to buy it right there.
Yeah.
You feel like you're getting a deal. Like you're like, oh, I'm even if it's not as nice as I thought it was, like I'll take a chance on it for $23. If it's not nice, I can send it back, whatever. Right. Like you actually feel like you're getting a steal, and you actually get a little FOMO because you feel like you've found outsized value, right? So if you play fantasy sports, there's every now and then like you pick someone up in like the 8th or ninth round of the draft, and you're like, I got value. I got
Yeah.
value, right? So that's what you feel you've found when the price comes in below your low, right? So you oftentimes jump on it right away. You think this is probably going to run out of stock. All right. If it comes in above your high, then the effect that you have is sticker shock to a degree. But if I were to tell you your high was probably somewhere around $80 or $90, right? If you said 50, if I were to tell you this is a $200 hoodie, the main thing you feel probably is just a knowledge gap. You feel like you walked into a movie and like missed a key scene.
Yeah. It's like, wow, this thing happened.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, oh, did I miss something? Is this a brand I should know? Like, why is this $200, right? And it doesn't have to be logical. I'm not saying you have to logically explain why it's $200. It can be emotional, but you miss something. And maybe it's like, so it's like a really soft, warm hoodie, but like that can't be communicated visually, right? Or something like that. And this is, this person said leggings in their context. So like a lot of this hoodie stuff applies to leggings as well. So yeah, like basically if you're not selling, and then anything in between. And so if you get below the low, it's a smash buy. If you get above the high, they're probably not going to buy. They're going to feel like they're missing something, and they're not going to go do the work to figure out what they're missing, right? They're just going to move on. If you land between, I call that the ponder zone. That is where, let's say you were right, it's $40 or it's $50. What are you going to do? You're going to buy it that day?
Yeah, it's like a consideration cycle, it's like,
yeah, you're like, okay, cool. Think about it. It seems cool. Maybe I'll buy it. The only thing that makes somebody buy if they land in the ponder zone is an event, right? Weather turned cold. I need a hoodie. My old hoodie got too small because I'm getting fat. I need a hoodie. My old hoodie is too big because I'm losing weight. I need a hoodie. There's a sale.
Yeah, it just happened with Everlane. I just bought some jeans. Like they were on a crazy good sale. It's got cold here, so boom.
Exactly. Yep. So only events make people buy in the ponder zone. If it's on the low end of the ponder zone, probably not as much of an event. If you just see it a few times and you get annoyed with your current hoodie, you might just be like, all right, that's enough, right? So it's a series of micro events of you liking it and not liking your current one, right? But like mostly it's going to be some event. There's a sale. So if you're only selling on sale, what's happening is people are seeing your ads or your content or your product, wherever you're showing your product out there, and they're going and they're looking at the price and they're landing in the ponder zone. And then when you get on sale, you now are creating urgency, right? Because the sale is not going to last forever. So, and scarcity if you're running out of product, but if they're distributing into Costco and stuff, they probably are not running it. They're probably an always in stock type of brand. So, there's probably no scarcity, but you're creating urgency because now you're on sale. So the only thing, you're landing a lot of people in the ponder zone. You're kind of like blowing up a balloon of potential sales, and then you're popping it every time you have a sale. So if you want to, the core concept here, and we can talk about how if you want, but the core concept here is if you want to sell at full price more, you need more people to land more often in the, in that like smash buy zone, or you need to create more urgency events that are not sales. So best way to create an example. Yeah. Most clothing brands do it with drops that sell out, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So why does Addicted do so much money, do so much revenue? Well, they drop product every week and a lot of that product's going to sell out. So if you like something they drop, you better get it today because it might be gone tomorrow. You know what I mean? That's the way that most clothing brands do it. Their core collections, most clothing brands only really sell their core collections during sale. They're always in stock stuff is kind of like that sells when it's on sale or when people have individual events in their lives that are kind of unpredictable and you can't create those, right? But the only way to kind of like drive consistent sales is to have to create urgency events that are not sales, right? Going out of stock, urgency or scarcity events that are not sales. So going out of stock or drops or things like that. So I think that's one idea is that they could essentially they have core at Costco, they have core on their site, but they could essentially just say, look, core, we're never going to sell core at full price on Evergreen. We have to do licensing deals, right? And we got to do, I don't know, 49ers leggings, probably not the right fit. Maybe something that's Barbie. I don't know. What do girls into? Barbies, obviously. Obviously they're into Barbies. Do some Barbie leggings.
Everyone's into Barbie. The movie blew it up, baby. I'm a Ken guy.
The movie was incredible.
Some Ken leggings.
Get some Ken leggings.
Yeah.
So yeah, licensing deals or limited edition type stuff. I mean, this is, you hinted at this a little bit with the red label thing, right? Like limited edition type stuff that will run out, that you can create urgency or scarcity events, for all those people you're putting in the ponder zone. Or you need to get better at communicating value with your ads. So, if your leggings are made in the same factory as Lululemon, price anchoring is a great way, talking about how Lululemon leggings are $80 or $90 or whatever, and these are made in the same factory. And then somebody clicks through and they're like, oh, I was thinking maybe theirs were like 60 and they're 40 or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So price anchoring is a good way. The way that you display it, merchandise it, it is a good way, or like what environment people are in when they see it. Your designs, like the design you use in your ads and the fonts that you use, subconsciously communicate value. But yeah, there's a whole list of ways that you can sort of communicate more value with your ads. But you're also kind of battling this thing where a lot of your market seems to know about your product already. He said there's like Reddit groups and mommy Facebook groups that talk about their product as like really good value for cost type of thing. So they're kind of like deal hunting for the product. So you might be battling against that. The only way might be exclusive drops.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Or yeah, I'm thinking about like, if I were them, you definitely have you have awareness. And so the one thing I was going to ask you about when it comes to these events, like, do you think that a brand like Lululemon that typically doesn't move their price at all, do you think that they're such a good brand because they manufacture events in their consumers' brains? So it's like,
Yeah.
we know you're going to work. We've built this amazing shirt, and we know you're working out because you should. And here's our leggings. We're the best in the market. Without
Yeah.
saying that, like, this brand seems like they are going after maybe the same consumer. And so I'm wondering, like, if they wanted to increase price, they could come out with like the next version of whatever they currently have. Like, you could say, hey, maybe you haven't done really much at all to the product, but if you launch like next spring, we've got, the legging 2.0.
Yeah.
It might anchor that. It might be a almost like a fake event that you've manufactured in the customer's head to say, oh, wow, 2.0. And it's like, I've been buying them for 40, but now they're 65, but it's 2.0.
Yeah.
So like, maybe it's worth it.
My only pushback here is that I think that if they're appealing heavily to sort of a mommy audience, let's call it mommy audience right now is a lot of millennials. So it's a lot of like women in their 30s, 40s. It's a tough one because they're pretty savvy and they're pretty good at sniffing out what's authentic and what isn't. They follow people online, they're in groups. They're pretty good at sniffing out what's authentic and what isn't. So I think Lululemon has essentially created like very genuine, and I actually think Lululemon, if I'm not mistaken, I would have to check their quarterly because they're publicly traded. So you could look at this. I'd have to check their quarterlies. But I think that a lot of how they grew is that they would sell out of stuff really fast. You know what I mean? So it's like,
so they created scarcity.
Yeah. So there really was urgency around it. But a whole other play is attention arbitrage. So if like right now, let's say whatever efforts I'm doing reach, whatever resource I'm putting into getting my product out there through advertising, content, whatever, is reaching 100,000 people for however much resource I'm putting into it. If I could put in 10% more resource, but reach 1 million people, now all of a sudden you have a much larger pool of people who might be having personal events, right? I changed jobs and now I can wear leggings to work. I am, it got cold here, or I'm starting, I'm getting more into yoga and I'm going 3 times a week now, and instead of 1 time a week. So I need more leggings. Like now you've just like created so much more attention that you're going to have more people that are kind of like having personal like urgency events, if that makes sense, right?
But are you thinking you would actually change the price? Like once you know that that arbitrage can be tapped into, would you just go ahead and move the needle and just see what?
Well, they're trying to sell at full price. Let's just kind of like address the issue of like we're currently trying to sell at full price. I don't know what full price is for them. So let's say we know it's leggings $50. I don't know, $50. Lulu's 80. They're seen as value for cost. So let's say they're as good as Lulu, but they're 40 or $50, right? What right now they're trying to do that, but they can't even sell at full price. They have to discount it from full price. So one way is to figure out a way to communicate more value so that women are, going to their landing page expecting $70 or $80 and then they're seeing 40. Another way to do that is to just like get so much more people for the amount of resource you put in. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like I said, you go from 100,000 people to 1,000,000 people and you only put in 10% more dollars or 10% more resources. And, then it's just pure attention arbitrage where it's like, yeah, now even if people are, if they are expecting 40 and it is 40, you have more people who are kind of in that buying moment in their own personal life. Does that make sense? Without you having to go on sale to create the buying moment. Does that make sense?
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah. So I don't know ways that they could do that. I do think if they're doing well already in mommy groups and on subreddits and stuff like that, they should probably actually just hire like a community manager, influencer, maybe a couple of them who is like the face of the brand, who's on the Instagram, who's like somebody who's relatable to that audience. And I think that probably could increase their attention or increase the affinity at least, right? So then like, people are willing to afford. So another thing, I'll give an example here. I bought a pair of pants from Jack Archer because I saw an ad. So I like to play the game Price Sniper. That was earlier when I said, how much is my hoodie? I call it Price Sniper. Guess the price. I saw an ad for this pair of pants from Jack Archer, but the ad was done by this guy who's a comedian and he does a lot of like skits. He does a lot of skit comedy and he does a lot of those like corporate skit type things where he like makes corporate life. I think he's funny. And I'm a big advocate for brands working with creators and comedians and stuff like that, and just letting them cook, giving them creative freedom. So this guy, this video comes through. That's a skit, normal one of his skits. I'm watching it. 30 seconds in, I realize it's a paid like collaboration with Jack Archer, right? So he mentions, but the skit was already well written enough that it was just a great skit regardless. You know what I mean? So I clicked on it and the price was exactly what I thought. It landed right in my ponder zone. It was $80, but because they did two things. One, they used a creator that I like and I want to support. Two, they also hit a value for me. A value for me is a thing I advocate for brands to do. So I'm like sitting there thinking, I want this ad to be one of their best performers. So I'm just going to go ahead and buy this right now. So I think affinity also kind of buys you a lot of ground for people to like make a purchase because they feel they're supporting someone or something they care about. So I think that's something maybe they could try as well.
I love it. Yeah. I agree. I mean, the fact they have all these eyeballs, whether you're using an influencer like that or not, like you have a lot of people that are probably going to advocate for you. So tap into that market.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. And I think especially if you create something reliable and genuine, like you have events that are reliable and genuine, or you kind of do more grassroots stuff where you have a person who's more relatable, it buys you a lot of like right now, it maybe seems like, I wonder if the people in these groups are like, oh, they're trying to sell these for $40 or $60 on their site or whatever. And they're 30 at Costco. So I'm not going to buy them unless they make them 30 on the site or something like that. And it's like, well, you can go get them at Costco, I guess. Right. So like, I wonder if that's what's happening right now. And they're like kind of getting like negged in these brands in these groups. You know what I mean? It's like the women like, no, like, hey, this is a great brand, but don't let them sell it to you for 40. They'll do it for 30 type of thing. Like it's like you're getting a great deal on this car, but hold out for an even better one. You know what I'm saying? Like, I wonder if that's what's going on based on what this person wrote. So I think that's where affinity could help, right? Where somebody could kind of like explain, well, these are actually different ones than we sell in Costco or whatever. Or like people are just willing to give leeway because they feel like they're supporting someone or something they care about. That could help. Attention arbitrage. I think like if you could, like Lulu, that's the main thing I think that they really had going for them is they created this whole movement of attention, right? Everybody knows who Lululemon is. And they kind of swallowed the market. The value building more with your ads and with your content. So they expect a higher price when they get to the landing page. Those are the main things I can think of.
No, those are great. I think you hit it.
I'm on a repeat now. So
no, I mean, I'm curious. Yeah. We'll have to do like a follow-up. I want to hear what these customers take away from it. And if they
that's true
execute on any of it, that'd be great to hear.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. All right. So should we close out with a fish story?
Oh man. Yeah, sure. I mean, listen, it's not the most exciting, but
did you basically already say it? Our founder got to meet with one of the people from Fish.
Well, come on. I mean, yeah, but no, I mean, well, I guess I'll say
set the scene. It's December of 2023.
But yeah. So, well, I mean, here's the scene. Here's what's cool. I think for everybody out there, like people build e-commerce brands, I think, because they love to get close to the product and they're super passionate about these things. And like
Mhm.
when you're selling physical goods too, like you love to feel it and touch it and use it, right? So Section 119 was the company I worked for before, and Section 119 is a fish reference. The founders are like super into fish, like seen over 100 and something shows, like tons of them. Traveled the country to watch this band, and
Okay.
so the company started as an apparel company first, and then they started doing licensed
Yeah.
goods. But it was Grateful Dead, right? Which is cool. It's adjacent to fish, but they
Yeah.
never really
If you're
had
a
the
fish fan, you probably like the Dead.
yeah, yeah. But they never had the fish license officially. We just sold like stuff that looked like their iconography. But
We use the term observed data earlier. There's a
yeah,
version of that in licensing
yeah,
that's
yeah,
like,
yeah,
this isn't official.
yeah.
We're not using the fish logo, but we're putting a phrase on a t-shirt that only fit. It's an inside joke to fish fans type of
Right.
thing. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. That's what it was. And so just imagine you've got this guy, the guy I worked with, my boss, and imagine I know you're a sports guy. I forgot what team you love, but let's pretend you love the Eagles or something.
Okay.
Imagine going to
Said that.
180 Eagles games. Okay. You've been to
Dude.
180 Eagles games. You've never met anyone on the Eagles. You never met the coach. You've never been behind the scenes. You've never been in the
Yeah.
tunnel on the field. So we're going years now. We've made, like side gear for fish. And then
Yeah.
I had left the company. I'm at Triple Whale at this time, and I'd actually never met my boss ever. I worked remotely. And so
Mhm.
I told him, hey, I'm going to Madison Square Garden to see fish. This is like the Super Bowl of fish. They do every
He's
year.
like, dude, I'm already there.
Well, he says, hey, well, he lives in New York. He doesn't live in the
Okay.
city, but he lives a couple hours north. And he goes, he texts me back. He's like, I'm coming in too. And I was like, oh, sick, dude. We should meet up. He goes, yeah, guess what I'm doing. I was like, what? He's like, dude, we just signed an official deal with Fish to do their licensed
Amazing.
apparel. And I have free tickets tonight. And I'm going down in the tunnel of Madison Square Garden behind the scenes, and I'm gonna meet the band tonight before the show. And I was just thinking to myself, like, this guy has dedicated a lot of his life, like
Yeah.
180 shows or something, a lot of money, a lot of like travel, has never actually met the band
Yeah.
that he loves. And here he is, after a couple of years selling some of their goods, and he's shaking hands with them.
Yeah. I love that. I am going to actually parlay that into just, and I'll kind of close with this.
Yeah.
A thing that I've observed in e-commerce is you have some people who are just like, I'll call them business people or marketers or money makers, right? They're like, I don't necessarily care about the market that much. I just I chase opportunities, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
I specifically know one dude who's like, he has a baby clothing brand, and like he could probably care less, right? Like now he probably knows a lot about baby clothing. Moise Ali is a great example of this. He says all the time, I knew nothing about deodorant, but I saw an opportunity,
Yeah.
right? And
Mhm.
built native deodorant. So there's a group of people like that are just kind of like entrepreneurial people. And then there's a group of people in e-commerce that are they are the customer of what they make. Does
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
make sense? So
Uh-huh.
like I want, leggings that do this, or I want, like clothing, I want clothing that's like this, that is like modest but still cute or whatever. Like they are the customer, and they like make the brand to sort of serve themselves, and then the brand sort of, they realize there's a lot of other people out there like them, and I call them brand champions or customer champions. And especially when a customer champion is like an early team member or a founder, those are, I find, the most successful brands, especially in terms of LTV. Those are the ones where like the brand has super fans, partially because they love the person, but partially because they like really like the products they create. Like people just really love them, right? The brand has super fans, and the brand have people who will come back and just like, like blindly buy whatever they put on the website type of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
They'll sign up for notifications, they'll sign up for text, they'll sign up for everything. They'll be the first person in on a drop. They like have these like raving fans. Those are the brands that I've noticed have that. Nike is like a really scaled up example of this. Phil Knight was a runner, right? And Bill Bowerman, his partner, was the track coach at the University of Oregon. Like they are like Bill Bowerman spent years just like making shoes for his athletes. So
Yeah.
they like were this, and now like Nike's kind of kept that identity decently well. And so I think that those, I would say, are like, not that Native is a great success story, but those are the ones that I see having like, they can make a lot of mistakes You know what I mean? Like they can get their marketing wrong, they can get their customer acquisition wrong, but their current customers will provide so much support for them that they can get a lot of things wrong and like still grow. And those are the best bet. Like if you can get in to business with somebody who is a brand champion or a customer champion, and or if you are that and you can build a brand around that, and the brand gets some level of traction like this brand did, that is huge. Like that is like, those are going to be the most like rocket ship brands in terms of like profit and shareholder value to just the small group of shareholders that own it.
Yeah, I love it. That's great. I agree.
Cool. Good
Get
closeout. Thanks for having me on, dude. Sorry I rambled a little bit too much, didn't let you talk, but you know,
we had fun.
Had stuff to say. Yeah, no, it was fun.
All right. So how are people going to send in their questions next, John? What are we doing here?
Okay. So, I am at John JH Coyle on every single social channel. So you can DM me. And that's really easy, at John JH Coyle, every single social channel, or john.coyle@triplewhale.com. If you go to any of my socials, there's like links there for you to like, you can schedule a call with me. You can do all kinds of, so yeah, you can talk to me through there, but yeah, john.coyle@triplewhale.com. You can send the questions there as well. And
you could be a future caller on the Boardroom.
You could be a future caller. Yeah. Also, you know, if you don't mind, little plug, check out my other show. It's called Dark Mode with John Coyle. I get together with comedians and brainstorm ad ideas for brands. So I have like actual real live working comedians. Some of them are pretty well known, and we brainstorm out ideas. The main thing I tell them is to be funny. So not all the ideas are viable. But some good ideas usually fall out of it.
There's nuggets in there somewhere, guys.
There's definitely nuggets. You might have to dig, but there's nuggets. So yeah, check out my other show. You can find it on my YouTube at John JH Coyle, or just search Dark Mode with John Coyle wherever you listen to podcasts. And yeah, I don't know. People should tell us in the comments or email us and let us know if they want us to do more of these.
Please hit us up. Feedback. We want some passionate listeners. You know, we talked about passion. We're passionate.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. That's why I ramble, because I'm passionate.
That's right.
How do you close it out?
Just like that. Close
That's
it out.
It's over. It's over now.
Yeah.
It's over now. Bye. End.
See ya.